Yeah. Um. Then I'm gonna put this.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Super easy to start out with. Just name,
Yeah.
age, and where you're from.
Yeah. So my name is Dean. I'm from Ireland, and I'm 31 years old.
21.
31.
31. I was like, no way.
No.
You're. Wait. Sorry. Say where you're from again.
Oh, Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
A place called Wexford. It's down southeast. Very, very southeast, right next to the sea,
Okay.
where nothing happens. And life just says the same. But it's very beautiful.
Is that home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's home.
Why is that home?
Well, my family's there. I grew up there. It's the only place I ever lived. Well, with my family anyway. I never moved around with my family. It was always a place I lived. But yeah, I would say more so my family. A house. Yeah. You know, our studio is there, and there's a lot of memories from like our past in music, and every good thing, bad thing that's ever happened to me, it happened pretty much there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it does, that will always be home to me. I will never live there.
Yeah.
Even in Ireland, I don't think I'll ever live there. But it will always be a place that I will always have a long go back to for like years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime when I'm older, I can see myself, my like later years, should I say. I could see myself there, but I don't have any ambition at all to make a life in Ireland whatsoever.
Okay. Well, why not?
For a number of reasons. Like financially, it's a very difficult place to live. But I just don't ever. I don't really feel like it's the place for me. You know. I always felt maybe somewhat out of place there. Like I've got some amazing people there. Don't get me wrong. A lot of love community there as well. But yeah. The traveling aspect is like actually does world outside of this place that I've been for such a long time. And it is a huge part of my life, but I don't have that connection of looking to like really place my roots there, and because I have roots there already, you know, going forward, it's not a place that I see myself thriving, I guess. You know, the things that I want to do, it's not there. It really isn't, you know what I mean? No, not that I've found that anywhere else, by the way, but I've tried, I guess. I've looked out, I've been to other places, lived in other places. Yeah, not to those places either. I felt that I could like stay there for years and years on end, or build a really concrete life there.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there's a massive world outside that I haven't explored.
Yeah.
I've explored a bit, but there's huge amount more.
Where have you explored? Where have you tried to look to that place?
So a lot of Europe. This is my first trip outside of Europe. So a huge amount of Europe. Well, not a huge amount, I guess, but like, I'll go to the place that I lived in. I lived in Zagreb, for 8 months. That was amazing. That was incredible. I really love Zagreb. But like, I mean, it's not the most amazing city you'd ever go to. I wouldn't like tell everybody you have to see Zagreb. No, but it was definitely a very, very difficult place to be. The people that I met there, the people that I spent time with there were just incredible, and that was similar to here in the sense that like that's what made me stay. And the place itself where I was volunteering at and working out, that definitely it was just a mad place altogether, you know. I lived in Prague for a year. Yeah, I didn't have that connection at all with Prague. I thought the best thing about it was always something happening. But as for me as an individual living there, I definitely struggled. I think personally, and just personally, I think just because it was very hard to build a community there in Prague. I mean, there's a lot of foreigners, a lot of expats and stuff, you know, but there's a lot of college. You meet them and then they're going home for the summer, and then it's like, or they're finishing college, whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, there was a great music community there, and that's why what kind of made me stay a bit longer than I did, or that I was initially planning on, I guess. Whereas Italy, for a shorter period, that was definitely a lovely experience. Again, the person I was volunteering for, she was just amazing. In the place we were in, I was in Villa Veronese in northern Verona. Up in the, I believe it's in the Senior Mountains. It's spectacular. But again, that was like my first volunteer I ever did. But yeah, language, it was definitely a problem there. But that was an amazing experience. That's what like sparked off everything for me, travel wise, just seeing things in a different way to go like, okay, you don't have to. Because the reason I went was I was really pissed off at work. I was just like, man, this is something that I don't want to do. I was heavily abusing substances at the time as well. Definitely off the back of like work, doing a job that I didn't want to do. Like it was, I learned a lot. I never regret doing it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I could have went and been a welfare and stuff, but I was like, nah, man. But I don't regret it. I learned a lot. But yeah, there was that. It was just that monotonous thing by working hard, like really hard as well, and then going out on the weekends flat out, using drugs, abusing alcohol, and then spraying that cycle constantly again. And I just got to the point where it's like, you know what, this is not what I want to do, but I'm doing it. Do you know? So it's like, oh, what the fuck? And then I don't even know where I heard about volunteering, to be honest with you. Because I done that show wolfing in this talent. And yeah, and I went, and I remember at the time my brother was like, you know, wait, don't book it, I'll go with you. And then this went on for a couple of weeks, and I was like, no, I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. And we kind of had a barney about it, and I was like, no, fuck it, you know, I have to get the fuck out of here for a while. Like, I'm gonna drive myself mad. I want to. Self-induced, no, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, it was what it was. But when I went, yeah, it was a great experience, absolutely amazing experience. Went on my own, and yeah, I came back with that view of going like, I'll definitely do that again. And the more I did it, the harder it was to come back. Not to come back, but to stay and not think immediately going, right, what I'm going to do next. Not in Ireland, what I'm going to do outside it, whether it be volunteering, whether it be traveling, you know what I mean? And then always surrounded volunteering as well, because I just loved it. I loved the idea, because it just put you in. I think I was saying this to other people as well, it made me a bad traveler, weirdly enough. Because I didn't know what to do when I'm traveling. I'm like, you know, people go do this, and then I kind of get bored. I'm like, I wanted work. Or funny enough, as much as I probably give out about it, I like being proactive. I like doing something and feeling like I have a purpose. I have to be here for this and contribute with something as well. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, that was kind of what sparked it off, and it's evolved ever since then. For sure, and it's made me think about things differently and moving forward with what I want to do in my life differently. But also I think it just gave me more skills, you know what I mean? I've done a lot of like different things throughout my 20s, and whether I think it just keeps adding the string to your bow, you know what I mean? Constantly adding the string to your bow, and I'm like, if you just said to me when I was 20, like, you're going to be one of the managers of an amazing hostel in Koh Tao in Thailand, a small island, I'd be like, huh? You know, so, and this was never planned. Even, you know, I was supposed to be here for 1 month, so that's what it showed me, is what it's like, having expectations, the view of expectations, mine less, because I was like, what's the point? Because always something happens, and for the greater good as well, which I found, thankfully. I don't know why that is, but I think the energy you put out there, if you put out positive energy, this reciprocates to you. But you end up in situations that you just didn't expect to be in or even think about, and then next thing you're in them and you're having this amazing experience that you never thought really would happen, you know? And I think that's the point of travel for me anyway, that it wasn't about the places, you know? Because before, when I started doing it, I really was into the idea of traveling, like volunteering on a place for 1 month, and traveling for a bit, volunteering on another place, and seeing as many places as I wanted to. That never happened. Not for once it never happened, so I always kind of got stuck in a place. And it made me view things differently, because I had this conversation with another guest here, and we were looking out here, it was a beautiful day, and I said to her, like, you know, those hills out there, as beautiful as this all is, they will always be there. But this here is not always going to be here. Like, I'm not saying the hustle, touch wood, will always be here, but the community vibe in this moment, that's going to pass in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, you know what I mean? And then a new wave of beautiful people will arrive, but your moment in that is here now. And I love that idea, and I think like that's works holding on to. You know, if you really feel that you're you're seen in a place, you're studying in a place, and you have that sort of community in one place, then don't worry about the whole traveling because Thailand isn't moving anywhere. You know what I mean? So I always like that. You know?
Yeah. So like that's like I love what you just said about like it's about where you are, not like the traveling itself. It's like as long as you're happy, don't change anything.
Yeah.
Once you're unhappy, and like it sounds like you were specifically not happy in some
Yeah.
other places when you were traveling, and
Yeah.
you because it was something that like touched you in place.
Yeah.
I've also like you talked about like welding, you worked here. You also have done music, and you had like your studio at home.
Yeah.
So how has like traveling to all those places and like find like how did you discover like what was important to you? Can you like elaborate on that a little bit more? And then
Yeah. I think probably the things that you miss was what did for me. Like music was always a thing since we were kids, and it was so weird because like when we were 10 years old, that's all we ever wanted to do. But then we always just assumed that's what we would do. But it didn't happen because we didn't do it. We just kept it ourselves, you know, and then it ended up becoming something that was just private to us, and the thing that we loved for. It wasn't for anybody else, it was for me and my brother, you know what I mean? And then we just kind of got lazy with it. We never released anything like that. But I think the more in the last 4 years, every time we traveled, the thing we talk about is like, I can't wait to go back home and make music. And, you know, really like, I mean, get that excitement and joy from it, you know what I mean? And yeah, so that's when, you know, and even talking to my older brother as well, he's been a big influence on our lives in general. And he says to us, you know, like, you wankers, you've got this thing you've always wanted to do and you're good at it. Why don't you do it? And honestly, I don't really have an answer for that. I which is odd. I can put it down to heavy procrastination, which is definitely one of the reasons, but I don't really know the other reason. It's weird. But so that's something that's definitely very important. And I think missing that is definitely showed us that, you know, this is something moving forward in your life that you should at least try to do, you know, regardless if it fails anyway. I mean, what difference does it make? You know, it doesn't matter now. You know, we care about the end product less than we used to. When we used to, when we were early 20s, it was like, no, it needs to be perfect. Now we're like, yeah, whatever. Don't care, like, just put it out. But other things actually that I found very important through traveling, it's might go on a bit of a tangent here to be honest, but as Mike whole interview may do. But when I was like early 20s and stuff, I don't like saying this now, but it was what I was thinking at the time. Like I would have went through a very periods of anxiety, depression, and then like obviously substance abuse and stuff. Probably as a cycle of all that as well. But there was one thing that struck me, and I said this to somebody, I've said this to people multiple times, and they were kind of like struck by it, was that I kind of felt a bit guilty for who I was, who I really was, like character-wise, you know? And maybe times I would like shut up because I felt like I was talking too much or annoying people or whatever, you know what I mean? And maybe I was a bit insecure with all that as well, like. But I think the more, not even with traveling, but that's definitely made me see that as well. I thought that was nonsense. But just being around good people and seeing the effect, you know, we don't rarely analyze the effect that we can have on other people. But when people, and we rarely tell people as well, which is weird. And I think when you're traveling, you're told more because you have these weird connections with people over a shorter period of time and you do more together and stuff. But to be told, and it's not like, yeah, maybe we all need a certain amount of validation in lives. So it's not, it's a human condition, I guess, but like, just to be told by people you recognize as beautiful people, that you too are beautiful. That's what did it for me. I was like, you know what, fuck that. Fuck being different for who you are because you need to be around your people. You know, sometimes you're just not around your people, and that's okay. That's fine too. And I think that used to bother me more. Like I cared about what people think. I think. I'm not gonna say that I don't care about what people think. That's a bit of a cliche. It's not really true. But I think as long as I know that I'm being me and being my genuine self, then I don't care. Because I'm like, well, if you not for you, that's fine. That's okay. You know what I mean? If I do something wrong, then I will hold my hands up and go, yeah, that was shitty actually, you know, that wasn't me being my most genuine self, you know. But that was something I definitely learned that was really important. That, and I said it to other people as well, that because it's funny when you see these like, you know, like the advice that you needed, you end up giving to somebody else, and you wouldn't have listened at the time. And you're sitting in front of people that are saying the same things that you felt maybe now, maybe years ago, and then you tell them, and maybe it goes in one ear out the other. But it's interesting that maybe in those moments, yes, it's actually less for them and more for you. And you need to acknowledge these things also and feel the weight of your own words and how you're saying this to another person who's going through the same thing, you know. Yeah, very strange, but also very important, you know. I think with traveling as well, you know, or more that when you're in a place for a long time, such as volunteering, it does give you time to really reflect and analyze things a bit differently, you know. And especially when I go back home and I'm seeing, you know, a lot of things are the same and stuff. And like, I don't really talk about my travel back home. Because people are, you know, we're on their own lives and stuff, and it's not like, I don't want to be that person who's like, oh, Thailand's amazing. Thailand is amazing, you know, it really is, but I think you have to go and experience that for yourself, you know what I mean? Like my close friends and all, I will talk about it, but I'll talk more like this, you know what I mean? And especially my first couple of volunteering things, that was a big one for me, that I had to explain like how it felt, rather than the beautiful place I'd seen. It was like how the impact that it had on me personally was incredible. Like, and there was a couple of friends of mine who were like, kind of weirded out when it comes to the volunteer. Oh, like, you work for free, that's weird. Why would you work for free? You can work money here. And I'm like, that's the ones that it's literally about that yeah, the experience, you know. It's another experience. And my brother always said this to me as well. He's like, no matter what you do in life, it's all just another experience. So keep broadening those horizons and open your eyes up to different experiences. And maybe some of them will be negative, you know, but again, it's another experience. It's another like learning curve. And even if you don't learn from it, happen again. And yeah, you'll learn again, you know what I mean? But
do you think it without that thoughts like it's like people have said that like going home can sometimes be hard, or like, you know, it's hard to like, explain how that feels, and then like the being abroad attracts a certain type of person with a lot of different cultures. So can you elaborate like a little bit more on like why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that like places like this attract that type of person?
I mean, it must be the psychological need for a new experience. So for me, it has to, well, for me, it's that, because you just get that yearning for something, whether it be that kind of lust for life kind of thing, you know, and that, you know, that buzz that you get when you book something, or when you're in a place and there's just something that, I mean, not looking like there's mundane days here as well, you know, mundane days in paradise, but nevertheless, it is paradise, and just that buzz is incredible. It really is, and I don't think until you've experienced it, you don't know what it is. But I think, yeah, because I don't really have another explanation for it, because I have noticed there's a lot of, especially in Scotland, there's a lot of like, we're all different people, but there's a little spark in us that seems to be very similar, you know, on this. And I think that's why here everybody all seems to get along. I picked up 24 beds, not plus privates, whatever. And we can all sit here and everybody has this communal thing. Everybody's like on a similar wavelength and stuff, you know, doing different things, going different places. That's weird. It's really odd. I don't really know what it is. I think psychologically it has to be this like, definitely being open is a characteristic of it. Like, the more open you are, the more open the world, or the more the world opens itself up to you. I definitely do believe that, and maybe that's why that your openness just attracts openness of other people or something, you know.
What you put out into the universe is what you get.
I do genuinely believe that. Yeah, definitely. But I do, for me personally, when I talk to other people as well, that when we go back home, and it's back to, and it's not that like, I don't want to like shit on where I come from or anything, but it's very stagnant. And you know, every time I'm on the phone to my mom or something, I have seen something, she's like, I'm very stressed that I said whatever it was, you know, and you know, that's comforting for me for a while when I'm there. But then afterwards, I'm like, I could spend 25 years to learn. And what will change? You know, what new experiences will I have or will I get? You know, and I always try to tread lightly with that because I don't want to infringe on somebody else's version of what or their blueprint of what makes them happy or what they want to do. You know what I mean? And that's why sometimes when I go back home, I don't want to like say too much about like, well, you should travel, you should go do this, you should go that. You do whatever you want to do, but your blueprint of life, not for me.
Yeah.
That's not saying that your boomerang is right or wrong, but that doesn't make me happy. You know, it really doesn't. I can't do it. I can only do it for a certain period of time, and then I have to go do a new experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, friends of mine, people I know, it doesn't bother them, and that's fine too. And you know, I've had conversations with friends of mine about like, I don't really want to travel. You know, I want to, you know, go invest in a house. I want to build a family, and that's cool. That's absolutely amazing. What a beautiful thing to do. Not for me.
Yeah.
It really isn't for me, and that's another reason why it's not that place. It's not for me either, because it doesn't fulfill whatever these existential needs inside me. You know what I mean? I think traveling sometimes is probably more of escapism also, because it fulfills it in different ways. You know, but ultimately, I still come back to other things in my life that I don't feel fulfilled in, you know what I mean? Whether it be the music thing and, you know, not fulfilling your potential is definitely something that I've struggled with and used. Probably a lot of different escapism. There'll be like, I mean, like substance abuse, it'd be traveling, sex, relations, you know? But I found traveling definitely being the one where like, it's more personally like it grows you as a person. Definitely more, but you get to see the world, you know. And that for me, that's one an amazing thing to like. I don't want to be there at 50. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for someone who's there at 50 and hasn't seen it. I was only been in their own town. Granted, if that made you happy, fine. But to me, sitting there at 50, 60 and not knowing this amazing world, even at the little bit you can see. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Do as much as I can before I hit that, and I'll be happy. You know what I mean? Maybe I won't be happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at least in these moments, I've found, honestly, moments of extreme joy, and that's all been because of people.
Yeah.
You know, seeing beautiful sunsets, don't get me wrong, in amazing places, but it's been about people. It's always been about people, and I think the connections that you foster when you're traveling, that's something that's important in itself as well, you know.
Yeah. But question about that, because I think that that's something that a lot of travelers get, like, to your point, like when they go home, they get that question from their families and stuff. It's like some families get it, they like go travel, like go see the world and stuff, and some people, like some travelers don't, and they'll be like, and they face that thing of like escapism, and I love what you just said of like, it is a form of escapism, like we all are kind of like looking for something. Like I love that example you gave, like you were on the road and you faced those issues, and like how do you balance that now and like look out for that and be like, and like how did you kind of like make that adjustment on the road without, because a lot of people want home.
It's pretty true, because it starts. I think ultimately it comes down to who I am as a person and the amount of growth that I've kind of just consciously done in the last 5 years more. I think I have to give like some credit to my two brothers, and in particular because I've always been a very introspective person, and maybe sometimes that's to my own detriment. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Because you can be too self-analytical and stuff. But I do think it's a healthy thing to keep asking questions, whether it be about yourself, be more open with people, and have these conversations with people. You know, I would think a lot. You know what I mean? I would constantly analyze things, and I've learned more to do that in a more healthy way. Before, I think it was in an unhealthy way, where I wouldn't see things the way they really were, and maybe if I did, my emotional reaction to them would be a lot different. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think just have an interest in it as well. Like I will, my two brothers, we would have these conversations. like constantly since I was 16, my older brother would ring me, we'd be on the phone for an hour and a half, you know what I mean? Talking about all sorts. Like go from golf to spirituality to like, you know, fulfillment to your own personal things going forward, you know what I mean? And the more you do that, the more open you are and the more you can actually be honest with yourself and stop those like cognitive dissonance. You know, being aware of your own cognitive dissonance is a very interesting thing, but you have to keep looking at it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my background's in psychology as well, so that definitely influenced me, and I would just have a natural curiosity towards that. You know, why people do things, why do I do things, and what, you know, why do you think that, and maybe there's a number of ways of looking at this. And I've always been really interested in like, you know, coming back to the thing about advice. You know, you will give somebody the advice that you should take, but you won't fucking take. That's a really interesting thing. Why is that? You know, maybe you should listen to yourself more and actually like do the things that you feel good to make you better. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's definitely why. Just being more introspective all the time and trying to notice when it's being negative, you know, and tweak it then and then go, no, that's there's a reason for these things. It can be exhaustion for one, you know, like you have different emotional reactions, different thought processes or whatever. But just being consciously aware of it every day with every interaction, you know what I mean? And that's why I love about psychology. That's what I studied, because you know, people say, I've been told this or asked this multiple times, like, you say you're psychology, you're like, oh, you're a mind reader. And I'm like, serious, you literally, the minute you wake up in the morning, you're actively engaging in human psychology. That's what you do in your whole life. Your emotional reactions, your behaviors, your routines, your habits, you know, your interactions with everybody, whether it be in the store, whether it be your family members, whatever it is. That's all psychology. So it's like, it's this encompassing thing that you're constantly, you know, living in and evolving within as well, you know. So I think, yeah, just be more consciously aware of how I'm feeling towards other people, how other people are feeling, you know what I mean? And you develop a high sense of emotional intelligence because of that, you know. And yeah, I definitely think traveling helps that, because number one, you're around more people, but in a different manner. I'm sure you've noticed that, like, where people are just naturally more open than they would be back home. And I think this is something that we definitely need to take in our own lives. Going, where people travel for a couple of months, then you go back home, you're back into the job, and it's like people are wrapped up in their own lives. I get it, I totally understand it, but I think that's where human connection, it kind of loses. It kind of gets disconnected in a way. We're here, but he's like freer, and they want to be open with you. They want to like have connections with people and stuff, and that is a beautiful thing. Like, and that's something that I've definitely missed every time that I went back home. And again, I've got a beautiful friend group there and stuff, beautiful family, and really good connections. But I found that, like, if I would move somewhere in Ireland and I'd have to start fostering that community again, it would be difficult. And to say that in your own country is harder as well, you know what I mean? And then you come out here for a month and like, Jesus, I met people that I can call lifelong friends and lifelong connections, you know? Yeah, and I definitely think it's something that we need to take into our own lives. And I think it's a healthy thing. It's a really, really healthy thing. You know, I've learned things about people here that it would take years to hear and learn about other people, you know? But I feel like I definitely did this in my own life, where being very open, I think I mentioned this already, but being very open lets people be more vulnerable or less vulnerable, I think, and kind of go, okay, I feel comfortable, I can be vulnerable too, I can be open. And two of my best friends said that to me and Ross, and they were like, you know, thank you, because you guys being open, being supportive, he definitely made us up. And I noticed it with the two of them before as well, you know, and they're a bit younger than us. And yeah, that meant the world to me, because like I love them too very, very much. And I think they've definitely become better people, being more open and being more honest to and for themselves and to and for other people, you know what I mean? And I think I was a bit amazed, not amazed, but I was a bit like, wow, Jesus, I didn't, like, as much as I'd seen you guys kind of, I don't want to use the words grow up, but definitely come out yourselves a bit, to acknowledge it and like thank someone for it and go like, yeah, that meant a lot to me. You know, that's amazing. It kind of goes back to like, you don't realize the effect you have on somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of, and maybe it's an Irish thing as well. You don't want to like, you're like, you don't like compliments, you don't like credit, you don't like any of that shit. But I think maybe it's good things to recognize that and go like, actually, yeah, that was a good thing you did for somebody there, you know? And those times when you're feeling like you're half of yourself, remind yourself that, oh, you're more than that, you're more than everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think, like, you mentioned, like, struggling with, like, mental illness and substance abuse and stuff, and, like, I think a lot of people who travel who relate to that, you know, like, maybe that, to your point, like, it's a lot of people who are striving for something that they come, you know, like, and then to your point, a lot of people, like, give advice to others and they wouldn't give to themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, what advice would you give to yourself back then that you wish you had? And then what advice do you think, like, 3 years from you now, like, what advice do you want to hear right now from your future self?
I'll do the first one.
Yeah.
So advice that I would give to myself back then would be more selfish. And the Match McConaughey does I think it's the podcast. He says this, and I really go home and he said we need to take back the word selfish. Being selfish is known as a negative thing, and he said it's not. Being selfish is looking out for yourself, doing the best for yourself. That doesn't mean that you're not thinking about other people. Actually, sometimes that's actually thinking about other people because you're being negative can affect relationships in your life. So then being selfish is like looking out for yourself to make these relationships better and healthier, you know? So I think I would say back then was definitely be more selfish. Don't do things just to make other people happy. Don't do things because you think other people will be pleased or whatever. Do things because you want to fucking do it. And look out for yourself. You know, it was definitely a trait of mine where like I was the last of the list, you know, and whether it be like doing the like not saying what I really felt or not being as open, and then turning to all these abuse and substances to kind of deal with that, and it didn't deal, but it only made it worse, you know, and then it just heightened the anxiety, fueled the cycle of this depression and stuff as well, you know. But that would be the biggest advice I would give. Right now, what my future self, I think, probably hone in on what your biggest frustrations are at the moment. My biggest frustrations are not fulfilling my potential. And that's, I think, the areas that I'm really interested in. And not that I'm very grateful to be here and like the experience that I have for sure. I've learned so much, like, and as I said, you know, I've done a lot. And I like that idea of like jack of all trades and the master of none, but the master of what is that? Jack of all trades, but the master of none.
Yes,
but a jack of all trades is better than a master in one.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, that's interesting because now you've done this. And it's a hostel for a while. That's a really interesting thing. Maybe you're going to use different things that we see in your life going forward. You know like what areas you're going to use it in, or you would use it. So, but at the same time, the music thing is something that definitely bothers me, and it has bothered me for years. So I think my future self would definitely have to make a stop on it. Sit down and really like have a go at it. And then at least at the end, you know, you did what you always want to do. You did something that you love. You made a body of work that looks in some way. Maybe it will go nowhere. Who knows? But it's already nowhere because it's not anywhere. You know? So definitely that. But something else I think would be I think remind yourself of moments. Life is about moments, and that is something I'm trying to constantly remind myself of now. When you're having moments that you're down and you're frustrated and that turns into resentment and anger, I think remind yourself of the beautiful moments when you didn't feel that. And you felt like the world was amazing and the little moments during every day were amazing. You know, I think trying to remind yourself of that. I know it's easier said than done, but trying to remind yourself of those times where the world isn't falling apart, you know, regulate your emotional reactions to things, have a step back and go, it's cool. You're all right.
Yeah.
I'll be thankful for those things. I think another thing is gratitude. Caitlin, did you meet Caitlin? No.
Hey, what?
Did you meet Caitlin? She was a volunteer here.
I don't think so.
But we became very close friends here, and she used to do this thing at 8:30 every evening, gratitude practice. You have to say 3 things you're grateful for. We did it every day, so it was like, God, I keep saying the same. But it would be a very spur of the moment thing, so it would be something that was in your day. And I think it was really interesting, and I think going forward as well, be more grateful for things. And I think that ties into what I was saying there when it's the pissed off someday, look out and realize where you are and where you've been and where you came from and the potential that you have going forward and the possibilities that you have going forward and be grateful for all of that.
Yeah.
I remember that it's just a moment of frustration or whatever. So it is have to step back and look at things that you're grateful for, I think sometimes it's very easy to be very privileged, we're extremely privileged.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes it's not fault of our own, but regardless, it's a fact.
Yeah.
So just being aware of that and kind of going, stop being a bit, get on with things and, be grateful for the moments that you have and the people you're around and the person that you are. Be grateful for the person that you are as well,
Yeah.
Because that's a great thing, not to I used to strive always, especially when I was in Croatia, and I was striving always to be the best version of me. But I think actually there was times when that actually worked against me because when I would feel down, I would go, fuck that, no, I can't feel like that. And a friend of mine said, you can? Yeah, that's okay. And I was like, nah, it's not okay. And it's only probably this, and I somewhat agree with it because it was I have a choice. But again, it is okay. And it's just reminding yourself that it is all right, but it's how long you fester with it and what you treat and do with it, but not to completely reject it is a negative thing. And understanding that was interesting. Yeah. I think those things that were definitely good points.
It's interesting you say that about the frustrating point, and also when you're saying about the music, you said a lot of interesting things, but the frustrating point, I think that I a lot of people like that, and I think that I do too. It's you want to make the most out of your life and feel this pressure to make the most out of it. So you don't want to waste time of being video big. I don't want to feel like that, but instead, it's actually a data point to be actually, I found out something that I don't like about my life, and I don't want to feel this way again. So I need to really understand what I didn't like about this situation. Why am I mad? Why am I frustrated? How do I make sure this doesn't happen again? And make sure by understanding really how I feel at this moment. Yeah. And then it becomes a productive moment, but it doesn't have to be productive in that moment. You can just be mad.
Yeah. I like what you said, data point, actually. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely, because again, I'm actually pulling these data points out now, which is, you open up and help it. That's really interesting. And I think that's what it should be. Yeah. I know what you're coming from, but in the moment, you're not thinking about this is going to be a learning curve here. You won't know until it happens, but yeah, definitely. And it's good to look back and think of them as like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because every negative thing that happens in your life, I mean, I don't want to say, I will say it in terms of me, because I don't want to say it. I mean, a lot of people go through a lot worse things than I've gone through, but the negative things have definitely been, in hindsight, not all of them, but a lot of things have definitely been, probably end up being good, actually, because it got me to other places. It made me do things that I maybe wouldn't have done, and I like the idea, it's not often the things that you do, it's the things that you didn't do. And then it brought you to somewhere else instead, you know what I mean? And you can't plan out for any of that stuff, you know what I mean? And I think even if some of the bad things didn't happen, then your emotional reactions to other stuff would have been different, and I mean, you would never know.
Yeah.
But it definitely, everything that you do in life is taken to this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm explaining all this here now. So that's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. But then it's I'm curious, like, with that information now, and you were talking about music, you know,
Yeah.
like, it sounds like it's the, like, fear of failure that's, like, stopping you to say that.
you know what? It's not. It's not. It definitely used to be, I think, or a sense of it where like it needs to be perfect, and it would be you'd be so pissed off if it wasn't perfect and it was out there and you're like, oh, this could have been so much better. But now it's not the fear of failure. Honestly, I actually, I do have a want to succeed, of course, but no, I actually, if it turns out to be that it doesn't happen or like, yeah, it fails, it's like, well,
Whatever.
it's already failed because we're not doing it anyway,
Yeah.
you know? The biggest, nothing would ever compare. I think just going forward, it was always a thing in our lives. That's who we were. Like my mom and dad, my brother always like, why is he a musician? That's what they do, you know what I mean? And that's who it becomes a part of the character, man. We don't really talk a lot about some of the people that we say we do music or whatever. That's not what it's for. And I think ultimately, no matter what we get out of music going forward, it's a plus because what we have got from music has been life changing. Those moments, that moment of bliss of making a track with my best friend, and we're very objective with it. We're like, it's not us. We're doing everything for this piece of music, and it doesn't matter. Like, this is what this needs. It's not what I need. You know. So those moments are incredible, honestly, and that's why I'm missing the act of making music.
Yeah.
You know, but no, yeah, I think going forward, I don't have a fear of failure. I think it's more the fear of not fulfilling potential. You know, and that doesn't mean that it has to be successful. It just means that you actually try.
Yeah.
You know. And another thing is about writing and stuff, you know, I would love to, like, I've written so much, but my brother said, why don't you send it off to somebody? Like, I was like, yeah, baby. And it's like, what I would like to say, the things that I'm most, talented in, I don't want to use the word talented because I don't consider myself talented, but things that I'm like,
Why don't you say consider yourself talented?
because talent is a weird term. I think time and experience is what gives you, what makes you good at what you do. You know what I mean? Unless you're a 4-year-old prodigy, Russia who can play piano, I don't know. That's genius. I don't know what that is, but I never really believed in talent. I think when you analyze and you say somebody's very talented, if you look at their past and what they've done, they've worked at it. They've sat in a room doing what they did for a long time. It's time. It's not. I know some people have just an act for things, you know, but that they still put in the time to do it. So I don't believe in that. But the things that I've definitely put in the time to do and had a deep interest in, probably so like a passion for, I'm not doing. I'm not doing as in my life I should be doing. You know? So I think that's the word of frustration comes, and that's the fear that I'm like, if I end up not doing those things, I would be pissed off, or at least trying to do those things, you know?
Yeah.
Because of put me and into a lot of other areas. I'm like, and your brother said before, he said, how do you, like, I'm thinking social work, man, working on a farm, but I said, what you doing shoveling cheap shit? I was like, yeah, well, they need money, like, yeah, he's like, it's fair, but like, why ain't you doing what you're supposed to be doing? You know, and that's an interesting point. Is my brother's a funny one. My brother's a really interesting person. He's saying it had a deep effect on me and my brother's life, and be forever grateful for it. But like, he's an artist for the last, since it was like 25, but he fell into art by accident. Like, he didn't use book, drawing, he wasn't this artistic person. He's literally one of his best friends. He used to go to Koh Tao. He was into with a sketch. We were on the beach. And he's like, you just do it with him. And after like a couple of years, he just kind of said, he said to me, "You're really good at this." And my brother Davey was like, "Ah, whatever, man." And then his best friend Vinny was a bit older than him, and he got him aside one day. He was like, "You're really good at this. This is what you need to do." I remember like, he didn't really care. He was like, "I'm fucking telling you." And he would have been a kind of a big brother figure with Davey. You know, they were best friends and stuff. But he would have listened to him. He said, "I'm telling you, I will fucking fall out with you if you don't keep doing this. Try and bring it into there was like where I'm from, there's like an opera festival to do like a lot of art exhibitions and stuff, and it was kind of easy to get into as a emerging Irish artist, especially in that area. So we did, and he listened to it, and it just kept building, and now if you type his name into Google, he's a renowned Irish artist. But he's not. That's not where he didn't go to an art college. He didn't start off being an aspiring artist, you know what I mean? But he was supposed to be an artist. So that's weird. You said you were supposed to be musicians. You're supposed to be a writer. But what are you doing? You know what I mean? And that does annoy me sometimes, you know? That you know, not bring the potential.
Yeah. And you can make music anywhere.
That's the other thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you can make music anywhere. So it really is just like picking up the guitar, that's hanging on the wall, and starting to write stuff down, and like doing it, and didn't prioritizing it. Actually, there's a famous chef down in Austin, Texas, and he was talking about he was literally losing weight. He was just talking about like losing weight, and he was just like, I needed to get in better health and everything, and he was just like, and at the end of the day, I realized like I just wasn't prioritizing. There's always time in the day for everything. Yeah. I just wasn't prioritizing. He's like, so I started taking my business calls while I was walking. Yeah. And he's like, and that like changed my life. And it's like the hardest part of like going to work out was like getting up out of bed at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like that's the hard, like, actually being there isn't that hard. No, it's like literally just getting it. And it's crazy. Like I think that's like with everybody, everybody has that thing that's like that is like music for you. It's like what the hardest part is getting started. Once you get started, and you like
you're small, and I think it's definitely human condition to always think about the bigger goal.
Yeah.
And not looking at like, well, no, it's like the idea even when you put it down to the gym, even it's like, oh, I want to be like him, he's massive. I can't get like that. Well, the first step is getting up out of bed and going to the gym.
Yeah.
But the first step is getting up out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, well, first of all, it's having acknowledgement that's what you want to do. But it's those small increments all the time and making them habits, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like you get so much from that. Like I'm a especially working here, I'm working in general, I'm a list person. Like I have to list out things. And when you cross off things, and even in my everyday, like if it's something I go today, all right, today I have to do laundry, make my bed, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go for a swim afterwards, I'm going to do all those things. I'm like, yes, I did the things I said I was going to do. You know, and it's those small things you get, like such a weird boost from it, even though they're just mundane, normal things.
Yeah.
But you're spot on in that, and it's about making those little small incremental changes and building the habits, and that becomes your bigger goal. And I think that's something definitely to look at, because in the past, definitely that wasn't the way we've approached things with music, because you're always thinking of the bigger picture, and you're always looking at people going, people release music already, and they're already made it. So what's the point? They've already done the shit that we haven't done, that we need to do, but we haven't really realized that we need to do that to get there, you know? So yeah, definitely moving forward, it is the small things. It is definitely the small things. And even I've noticed that with traveling and stuff, and just little emotional things, and like it is a small thing. And even the idea of going traveling, right? It's the idea of book the ticket. Just book the ticket. Don't worry about the whole thing after that. First thing is book the ticket. Then when the ticket's booked, you're going. So you're already in your head of going now. Oh fuck, maybe this is a bad idea. Get over that, and once you get in the plane, then you're there. Do you know? And I think a lot of times with people, what stops them traveling is booking the fucking ticket. And oh no, well, I can't do that. This. I won't have the money for this. Book the ticket, because when you book the ticket, you'll make it work. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what I always say to people back home when they say like, I'd love to do what you do. You're like, you can't.
Just book the ticket.
Just book the ticket. Yeah. It's that easy now, you know. And I know overall it's not that easy, but it is that easy. You know.
Well, I think that's what your point is. Like people will hype everything, and it's like it doesn't have to be traveling. It doesn't have to be like it's just like making it too big. I remember hearing my dad be like, I don't want something's like really hard and I'm putting it off, like get it to me. I got like 2 hours to do it. And I was like, no, just like give yourself 5 minutes, and it will never take that long. But you guys like overhyping everything, and I realized how much like we don't do that. It's like, okay, I need like 10 days for the perfect vacation. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe you only need 1 day for
Yeah.
the perfect vacation.
Yeah.
And then just like build a party. For the days, like to your point about like getting back from traveling and like you've
Yeah.
seen so many people come through, like, how have you seen yourself, like, what have you learned from the people that have like come through? Maybe specifically we use the hostel for
Yeah,
getting beyond like your hosted, but like feel free to use other things too.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
what have you really learned like from them that's made you be like, oh, like I'm gonna take this as advice from this person,
Yeah.
even if they unintentionally give me that.
That's a good question. I think definitely seeing from people a couple of things anyway. Well, definitely being around your people, whatever that means. I think it's being around open people, interesting people, funny people, and that brings out the best in you. When you see someone being the best of themselves, that internally brings out the best in you, and that's something that I maybe sometimes don't do, and that's something in those moments I have recognized that she's being around these people brings out the best in me, and that's something that I will definitely take, and always try to be the best version of me, and as much as you can. Another thing I think is really interesting is that I've had multiple conversations where maybe I was wrong, maybe my view on something, and I love the fact that somebody disagrees with you, where sometimes you have conversations with people who just agree, and it depends what it is. It's okay to agree sometimes with something that you don't wholeheartedly really agree with, but you're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, I see. But I've had conversations with people and they're like, yeah, I don't know about that now, but this is my point of view. And that's really interesting. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I still kind of believe because I come from a different perspective than you do, but it's really interesting to see your perspective, because I think sometimes, as much as I would like to think, I do consider other people's perspectives and stuff, you're still deep to your own. So I think knowing that, again, it depends, it's situational based, whatever circumstances. Like, so definitely just looking at it, maybe don't be so deep rooted in your beliefs. Again, depends what they are, but not everything has to be a set belief with someone, Something can, one circumstance can immediately change that, you know what I mean? I think just being around people as well that are just unapologetically themselves. But good people, it's not like they're bad people. And I've met bad people and they don't give a fuck. And they don't, and you realize, like, Jesus, there's some evil fuckers in the world, actually. And they know they're bad people, and they don't care. But there's a flip side to that, especially here where, like, people, beautiful people that are just themselves.
Yeah.
And they just make the room brighter, you know what I mean? That's definitely something. But also realizing that you are one of those people also, It's not only, it's all a symbiotic relationship with all of us, right? And yeah, that's definitely something. Yeah, and any hostel environment that I've worked in volunteered in, I've realized that you're always looking around. I've said to other people, like, everybody's so lovely here, and you're like, yeah, but you're lovely. And they're like, yeah, but like, no, you're also lovely, And I think sometimes when you realize that in yourself, it's so easy to say that to other people then as well, It's a good thing that, like, a healthy thing. Because I think in the past, definitely, I found that struggling. Maybe it's a culture thing, I don't know. But I always, anything that didn't feel sit right, saying, hey, I am a beautiful person. I'm not saying that you're a white girl. Do you know what I mean? Or, like, a bit egotistic or something. No, it's not. It's such a beautiful thing to recognize you are a beautiful person,
Yeah.
And know that you have a lot of good in you, a lot of good to give to the world, and definitely being here around good people has shown me that as well. Or reminding me of that, and like constantly reminding me of that, There's an interesting Mosier, like one of his sons, he says, remember once you told me about how before I heard it from your mouth, my name would always hit my ears as such an awful sound. And I definitely resonate with that in the past. And because it just was weird, and it kind of, that people saying, oh, you're lovely, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd never thought about that myself, because I had all these like people feelings of being probably just shitting on myself, And yeah, definitely being around people's definitely taught me that. Yeah, that's advice. Take that with you. That remind yourself who you are, and also know when you do something wrong. Yeah, You were shitty there.
Mhm.
You're not a shitty person. It's not a shitty thing. That's okay too, you know? Yeah, that's what I think.
The two things you made me think of. One was when you were talking about like the opinions and like strong opinions loosely held.
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like you better come
Yeah.
in and be like confident in
Yeah.
like what you believe in.
Yeah.
You gotta be open minded to like it being changed and then like let it go. And then
I like that one. That's nice.
yeah, it was I actually saw it on a dating app and I was like, oh, that's nice. I'm not gonna like you, but I like that. And like about like you're not a shitty person, you did a shitty thing. But like not judging someone on their best moments or their worst moments, but what they do consistently.
Yeah,
Like if you show up as a good person, like 99% of the time you're a good person.
yeah, yeah.
If like you do something like, you could like, do an amazing thing once, but
Yeah.
you're a shitty person the rest of the time.
Yeah,
like
no,
you're not
no.
a good person.
No,
like,
that's a fact.
and
That's
then
a
it's
fact.
like, and I think with travelers you see that like consistently.
Yeah.
Like they're like
It is the small
showing up
things,
as
just
good
the
people.
small everyday interactions and how you come across as somebody. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can. What I've noticed as well, and maybe this is being introspective about things, or just being around good and bad people, as you can really recognize when someone's being genuine.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to recognize. You know, and maybe there's moments where I haven't been most genuine, and it's because of something else.
Right.
You know, maybe just you're exhausted or whatever. When you can realize when someone's being genuine, when they're not, maybe when you feel like they're not being genuine, it doesn't mean they're not a genuine person. It might mean they're not a genuine person, but also considering maybe something happened in their day that, or in the past few months that has just drained them a bit, as maybe, try to pretend rather, and get on with things. It's not always as simple as, oh, it's black and white, and
Yeah.
I think when you're able to say it about yourself, then if you're comfortable saying it about yourself, realizing that it's not cognitive dissonance, that you're doing more analyzation of yourself, going, yeah, okay, in that moment it wasn't because of this, whatever justification, it's just that's the reason. Don't be so quick then to say that this person is this person is that. You know what I mean? Which I have, we all do it. I've done it, and then I walk away from it going, maybe actually that wasn't the case. Maybe and then I've always. It's funny that. Not always, but I've been in situations where I had to think about someone and then they've told me, flipped me and said, fuck, actually, I was wrong there, and it's a great thing to be wrong.
Yeah.
It really fucking is an amazing thing to be wrong, and I think the more we realize that we're wrong about certain things, that's a learning thing. You can't be right all the time, and I think, it depends. Even these things about beliefs and stuff, I kind of went away from really having strong beliefs about things because I just decided not to care as much. I think the things that really matter is the way you treat people, and being empathetic, being understanding, or at least attempting to be understanding. You know what I mean? I think all these other bigger issues in the world, it's just, I don't really have to pick them up because I'm not living in that sphere. You know what I mean? Whether, like for example, I was saying, Israel people asked me about it. I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna sound cold here, but I don't really care because it doesn't affect me. And that might sound very fucking shitty. If we start talking about that, we're gonna start talking about Yemen, Myanmar, everywhere else in the world that has heavy shit on it. So how much of that am I gonna actually talk about? If we're gonna research it all, then okay. But this is my world that I'm living right here now. And if I can be a good person within that and have a positive effect on the people around me, then you know what? I'm doing a positive thing for the world in general. Me having a strong belief about that doesn't really help. It actually doesn't. You know what? I get people who protest and stuff. I think it is a great thing. For me personally, this is the positivity that I'm showing to the world. Me being my most authentic self, helping people wherever I can and doing the best I can on a daily basis with the people around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why those strong beliefs and whatever it may be, I kind of turn away from it. And like, I can say something about this and then turn around and go, but like, how much do I really care?
Yeah.
And I'm getting all emotionally festered about something that I didn't really think about yesterday. So, I think as long as I foster good relationships within this sphere and make sure people are okay, yeah, I'm happy with that, you know.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's like you're making an impact on the community that you can control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
My last question, two questions, okay?
Yeah.
One, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to like leave on the document?
Yeah. I'll have a think about it, but ask me another question.
Okay. My next question was just going to be, what's your favorite memory?
What's my favorite one?
Memory of traveling.
That's a great question, actually. There's a few, and I'll give you a few because they're always different times or whatever, you know what I mean? But I think definitely one is in Zagreb, and I went with my twin brother and our best friend, Tommy. And I don't know if there was any moments in particular, but we were there for a while, and it was just a moment of the three of us together. We're having a couple of beers, my three of us, that kind of hugs like this is so nice to be here together, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was definitely a really, really nice memory. Probably happened a lot, you know what I mean? But just, I know it happened, we haven't been there, just like being really, really genuinely happy that the three of us are there together, you know?
Where were you?
In Zagreb, in Croatia, yeah. Another one would be, so my friend, and actually my best friend Tommy, his girlfriend now, who's they were always friends. Like they were friends up since 15 and stuff. And we were friends since we were early 20s and all that. Right? But I went on a road trip with her from which kind of ended up extending as well. But from the north of Spain to the south. She was working down south in it's like a yoga retreat place. So she was in Ireland and she brought her car over, and I was going through a breakup at the time when I was in a really difficult period. Wasn't doing good at all, to be honest with you. It was actually when I actually decided to give up drinking, the dry January thing, and then she called me over Christmas, like before New Year's and stuff. She was like, "I driving my car here. I just
You should be what?
you should come with me," she said. And I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "No, Dean, I come with. I really, really feel like you need to come with me." And I did, and we had such a lovely time. And a lot of it was driving, just talking in the car. It was laughs, it was cries, and it really helped me. It really, really helped me. I didn't realize in the moment of saying yes how much it would help me. And I'll be forever grateful for her, because the reason why she wanted somebody to go with her because she wasn't comfortable with driving the car, but she was like, I could have asked a lot of people, but I wanted you because I seen that you just needed to get away. And yeah, I really respect and appreciate that. And it's only afterwards I really realized, you know, that's a good fucking thread right there. You know, that in a moment where I wasn't there for myself, you know, those people. And it's always, I felt, it's always the moments when you're not there for yourself. It's when there's people there for you, you know. I think another memory is there's a couple of ones from here for sure. Definitely one when I came back here, because I was here for 3 months, and then I left for a month. Yeah, I left for a month in August, and I was then. So I left for a month because of visa reasons and stuff, and then I was going to come back in September and actually start working. So I went to Vietnam for a month, but I had a kind of turbulent time in Vietnam, and for a number of reasons, and it was all over the place. But when I came back here, got off the ferry, and I immediately had a sense like, oh, it's so nice just to be back. And Blue collected me, and I came up here, and I was immediately just filled with like energy and like joy, and just to be back, it meant a lot to me, you know what I mean? Just to be back in a place that you knew that you had a place. And me and Blue sat down last week and stuff, and she said some really beautiful things to me, and it meant a lot to me to you know, because I've always said, like, I don't work hard for anyone other than myself. I really don't. I just, it's just in me. I have a good work ethic, but I do it for myself. You know what I mean? But then also to be recognized for it and to be appreciated for it is a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? You don't have to be told every single day that you do a good job, but to be told that you're a part of you will always be here, will always be welcome here, and always like it's seen, you know, by the owners, by management, you know, and to be appreciated as a person, and knowing that you're valued here, you know, that means a lot to me. You know, and I always felt that here, you know, from pretty much the first couple of weeks I was here, I felt valued and recognized, and and felt like, you know, I absolutely love this place, but also I'm good for the place, you know. And to hear that is a lovely thing. But just I feel at the minute that memory of coming back here was really memorable. What's that? Yeah. There's another couple more, but I think those were very probably sure. Yeah.
Those are beautiful memories. Those are really, you're very lucky to have memories like those.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's all I have.
Yeah.
But Dean, I feel like there's so much more that you could talk about.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But
I really appreciate you.
I'm
really touched by all of that you shared.
I just want to say I'm really touched by that you're doing this. This is a really incredible thing. I think you've probably found it absolutely incredible with the clip that you sent that one. I think somebody needs to know what you would do it also.
The team did the same thing.
Yeah.
Etienne. I always fuck up his name. Said the same thing.
I think anybody who chooses to do this and puts in the time to do it is somebody that needs to be on the other side of the microphone.
I know. My thought is though is I want to tell your guys' stories, and I want them to live independently of mine for a little while.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe eventually I will.
Yeah.
But for the time being, I'm enjoying everybody else like their individual stories, and I worry that if I tell mine, then I become the person that's asking the questions instead of someone telling the story. If that makes sense.
I get you. Yeah.
So, but I agree. It needs to be done at some point. I don't know when, but right now this has been amazing, and everyone's been so individual, and their stories are so unique, and I'm so excited for you all to hear each other's stories too.
I'm amazed.
I'm sure everyone here you probably heard the most, so they may not be that surprising to you. But
well, no, I haven't really been listening to it.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen it, and then I'm kind of doing stuff. So I haven't actually heard any of it really.
All right, well,
so that's why I'm like.
I mean, like you get to know everyone so well. Like you're very much like you.
Yeah, you get. Honestly, it's a weird one because you do with some people. And then there's other people where like, and I've noticed that when I was a volunteer, I was definitely closer to people. Then when I became manager here, definitely a bit more disconnected on the whole.
Right.
But I know everybody, I'd say hello and we'd sit down, we'd have a beer or whatever, but the actual close connections were, I don't want to use the word selective, but they dropped down a bit.
Right.
Because I just didn't have, I don't understand how to mind it, but I just don't have the time, you know. And always in that work mode of thinking, that needs to be done, that needs to be done, you know what I mean? But the people who, I would say, probably people stay here longer. Like, for example, like Joe, like Caitlin, you know, like we became super close, and that was another thing me and Caitlin used to do with Wheel, because she's a very interesting person actually. But anyway, we would go to Sunset together. And we'd only go, just me and her, and we would just talk. We'd have a laugh, but it would literally be like this. And it was really interesting. And we do it every couple of days. We go to Sunset, and then we go, right, we talk today. Yeah. And we'd sit there for like 2 hours just talking.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. And it was when I just set aside the time to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And, but yeah, like you do get to know people, and it's such a beautiful thing to have that. But this is amazing, honestly. I really admire you as a person, but also just the act of setting aside your time to do it. And because a lot of people can have it in theory, God, that would be amazing to do, but actually to actively do it. And you know, I imagine you get so much inspiration from doing it as well. You know?
I will. The first few are hard, and then once you start doing it, it's just what we were talking about. The hardest thing is prioritizing it.
Yeah.
And it's like sending that message in the WhatsApp. Like, that when I sent that in my first, like I didn't do it at my first hostel because I was too scared.
Yeah.
I did it in my second one, and like one person responded, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, I shouldn't do it. And then I did it. Like it just becomes like I think it's been nice here, and like I've learned a lot by doing it here because I think to your point, like people see me doing it, and then they're like, wait, I kind of want to do that.
Yeah,
and then it's like me, and before I was doing it in like private settings, and now I'm like, wait, I think that people like to follow, you know, it becomes easier once they see one person do it and be like, oh, like now I get it. So anyway, it's been like, originally this started out as just like me. I was just like, I just like telling people stories, so I just want to do it. And now it's been like, there's like a real story here about Southeast Asia travelers and like the uniqueness, but also there's something that I had in my sports team. I grew up playing sports, and my coach always did something where she was like, each individual is so unique, but they all contribute together to create a team.
Yeah.
Like each one plays a different position. They have different strengths and weaknesses, and they need to complement each other to have a successful team. We're a very successful team.
Yes.
And it's so funny how that comes to life in every part of my life. I'm like, each one is an individual, but this household would not be what it is if everyone wasn't genuinely being themselves and open-minded to other people's strengths and weaknesses. And it's just like, I feel like there's like that's what the interviews are telling that story, and it's just like really
that's the overview. That's amazing, honestly.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
I'm so happy you done it here. Like,
thank you.
Because I feel like there's something happening here that that it's organic. It's not like, because it's really interesting. Valerie's a really interesting person. She's laid out this house. She's just thought about so much. She's such a experience with it. But the fact that she has this right now kind of steps back from it, and next thing it just flourishes, and there's this organic, her idea just comes to life without her being, you know, she's like directly involved in terms of like guest engagement and stuff. Like obviously she will talk to people and it's amazing, and she's a lovely person. Her story is fucking, I don't even know the full extent of it at all, but I know bits and pieces, and it's incredible. And then to see this vision come to light, and honestly I'd say they have to like make sure they're not dreaming sometimes, because what's happening here is absolutely incredible. It really isn't like. Yeah, I know when I leave, it will really hit me hard, but also be very grateful that I had some involvement at a certain time in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm really happy that you done it here, because I think this place as a whole has a very significant, unique voice in terms of Southeast Asia, but not only hostels, Southeast Asia, but just human connection and community, and that's not something that was ever said to me to do. You know what I mean?
No.
So that's why I always find it interesting. It's like it just attracts this certain specific spark of people, and I mean that's amazing.
It is. It's really incredible. No, as you said, a spark in people. You can see it when. I mean, also in the reviews on Hostel World, it's just like, you extend your day by 10 days. And I had that feeling the other day. I was like, do I stay? And I was like, wait, you have to move on. Like, I hit that point of like, you gotta go. But like, I really don't want to. Yeah, but we made it. Thanks.